senior basketball analyst. Four Stringer is here, back with you. And tonight we had a barn burner. It was everything we were asking for. The Los Angeles Clippers visiting the Golden State Warriors in Oakland. Hey, we know these two teams have bad blood. We expect it to be chippy. We expect it to be very competitive, and it was. These guys were straight up after each other, and it was a lot of fun. You could feel the electricity through your television set. It was great to watch. So let's get down to business. First of all, I want to talk about Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin has these point forward gifts. He makes such great plays. He's able to rip down a rebound. It's similar to Draymond Green, except Draymond Green is not really a traditional power forward in that he's a weak rebounder. Blake Griffin has the ability to rebound very well. Last season, he fell off a lot. He had been dipping more and more and down to 7 rebounds a game last year. This year, he's back to banging that glass hard. And that's what I want to see. Blake Griffin has all-around superstar capability, and I need him to do that because the Clippers are trying to win a championship. And that's what we're getting out of Blake Griffin this season. He's banging that glass. He's scoring. He's dishing. He's playing good defense. He's right now, he's the best power forward in basketball. There's no question about it. No question. Kevin Love is playing well, but he has not regained that Timberwolves magic that he had. And, it's always different. Sometimes when a guy's on a bad team and he gets those looter and a riot stats, maybe that's what he is. Maybe Kevin Love is just good and not great. LaMarcus Aldridge is still trying to adjust in San Antonio. Anthony Davis has inexplicably, in 2 of his games, just shot horribly. Blake Griffin right now is just playing spectacular basketball. So there was a play in particular, and it was going all over the internet, but I put it up on our Instagram and tweeted it out. Blake Griffin rips down the rebound, goes the length of the floor. He jumps, and then he kind of hangs for a second, double clutches it, and then he flips it up one-handed to DeAndre Jordan for the alley-oop finish. It was just one of those plays that lets you know how special a player and how skilled a player Blake Griffin is. He was great all night long. He was consistent. He didn't let Draymond Green, he didn't let the goon tactics get to him. He just played a steady, rock-solid game. And in fact, he busted wide open on that last play Chris Paul played in before he left the game with what was later called a groin injury. Blake busted wide open. Chris Paul didn't see him, so he didn't get the ball to him. So Blake's moving without the ball. He's doing everything you can ask a superstar power forward to do. He's just having a really fantastic season. DeAndre Jordan was what you'd expect. He was out there. And frankly, the minutes he was not on the floor, those were the minutes that Golden State was extremely effective because now you can go to the basket. This team has a serious problem with its lack of a backup center. Cole Aldridge is not going to do it for you. Doc didn't even bother trying to play him in this game. That's not going to do it. They need a real bona fide center. They need somebody that has DeAndre Jordan's capabilities. Not to that degree, but does the same things, just not as well. They need a bona fide center. When DeAndre was in the game, everything was fine. When DeAndre was off the floor, they really could not mount any kind of defensive pressure. It was just people skating to the basket, getting into the paint, and finishing. Lance Stevenson also had a very good game. Lance Stevenson is one of those guys people like to make fun of now. And it's almost like people are just hoping that he's bad. And Lance Stevenson had a really solid game. He played good defense. He moved the ball. He wasn't always getting an assist, but he was making good passes that were leading to baskets. He played a really solid game. And he's just fun to watch. He's always breaking down the defense. He plays really hard. Lance is fun to watch. I like watching Lance. Let's talk about Golden State, though. This Steph Curry, man. This guy is unbelievable. He's unbelievable. He was 7 of 11 from the arc tonight. He is now, through the first 5 games of the season, hit more threes than anybody's ever hit in the history of the NBA. The guy takes threes like they're layups. And I'm going to tell you, he always hits a couple of threes in a game, at least to start this season, that are amazing. It's not just that they're going in, it's the type of threes he's taking. He took a three that he hit, and I thought they called a foul with Lance Stevenson guarding Steph Curry. They called a foul on Lance Stevenson trying to get over the screen. It was a ridiculous BS call. But Steph Curry jumped to shoot the three, and he threw his hip into Lance Stevenson to try to draw contact and shot it and hit it anyway. For him to be able to go up and contort his body and make shots from the three-point line, it's ridiculous. And he throws it, and I mean throwing his body in unnatural ways into people. Now, by the way, that's supposed to be an offensive foul, but the NBA referees just don't. And they're certainly not going to call something like that on the Warriors. Those are offensive fouls. You're not allowed to throw yourself into defenders that are like, you can throw yourself into a defender when you're going toward the basket. But James Harden does that all the time. But when you're throwing yourself sideways and it's a completely unnatural, it's called an unnatural shooting motion, that's supposed to be an offensive foul. But again, NBA officials just, they can't get it right. Those who play Blake Griffin, he spent about 7 seconds backing down Draymond Green. And he just looked at him. He just watched him do it. And I'm thinking, I had to look it up. It's still a rule. You can't back down more than 5 seconds. Remember, for those of you that are old enough, that's the Mark Jackson, Charles Barkley rule. Because those guys used to dribble 18 seconds of the clock out, just backing down. They would back from the arc all the way to the basket. And it really was just boring to watch. So it's one of those things that they just said. And this is why the arguments against the fouling bad free throw shooters, put them on the line. This is why the notion that the NBA can't make a rule to prevent that, it's silly. It's silly because they make rules all the time to improve the quality of the viewing, the quality of the experience for the fan. They make rules like that all the time. They don't have anything to do with the competition. This would be a case where you would do that because nobody wants to watch people shoot free throws. No one wants to just watch that. So they do that all the time. And this was a case. That back down rule was a case where it wasn't anything that was unfair about it. It was just, it's not nice to look at, to watch somebody just dribble the whole clock out. So they just said, okay, from now on, you can't do it. To me, if the NBA was smart, they wouldn't make an official rule against it. They would just order their coaches not to do it anymore. And anybody that gets caught doing it, then we're going to internally punish you without making it public. That's all I have to do. That's all I have to do. All the owners agree we're not going to do this fouling people and putting people on the line garbage anymore. It's stupid and it looks terrible. It looks terrible, ruins the game. But getting back to this fantastic game, look, the Golden State Warriors showed you what they're about. And I was glad that Steph Curry answered J.A. Adande's questions after the game the way he did. He said, look, man, we've been doing this for 3 years. He said, we've been doing this for 3 years, trying to figure all this stuff out. That's why we look the way we do. And I was glad he said that because everybody acts like this is some new stuff. They've been doing this. They've been working up to this for years. Look, man, like, you're like, man, they're 5-0 and they beat somebody by 50 and they're winning all these games with Luke Walton as a coach. Yeah, that's because that's not the way NBA head coaching works. NBA, it's like, that's why the Atlanta Hawks, I'm sure you guys have seen the video. They walked away, not last game, but the game before last. They just walked away from Budenholzer while he was drawing up a play. They just all walked away. And he didn't even realize he was looking down and he looked back up and everybody walked away. They ignored him. The reason for that is NBA players, it's about a coach instilling habits. And once those habits are there, they basically coach themselves. They don't really need you to do a whole lot. And a lot of times they're going to kind of tune you out because they don't need to listen throughout the course of the game. They know what to do. They're not high school kids. So Mike Budenholzer has been drilling these habits into these guys for years at this point. You see the way they move the ball. Defensively, they're on a string. They do the same things all the time. Their offensive sets, I can tell who's going to get the ball. I can tell who's going to get the ball based on the way the defense is leaning because they make the same reads every time. Atlanta is very easy to predict, and it's because they've been well coached. Budenholzer has done a great job. So yeah, they're kind of not listening at this point. They're still doing the things you taught them, but on a individual basis. Like, do I need to see what he's drawn up on the clipboard? I know what he's about to do because I've seen it before, and we've worked on this in practice for years and years at this point. Same thing with the Golden State Warriors. So Steve Kerr takes the job, man. Mark Jackson already had everything in place, man. They've been figuring this stuff out for years. Steve Kerr's not there. He decides, I don't feel good. I'm not going to be on the bench. Put Luke Walton there. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at this point. They could coach themselves. You could remove all the coaches at this point. Sure, in a playoff game, when the games are going to be tighter and when you've suffered injuries, guys are tired. Sure, there are going to be decisions that the coaching staff makes throughout the course of a game. I'm not saying they're not doing anything, but overall, on a game-by-game basis, again, this is not amateur basketball. These guys are pros. They already know what they're supposed to do when. They either have good habits or they don't have good habits. When you're watching the Houston Rockets, they have no clue how to rotate. They have no clue who's going to do what when because they don't work on these things in practice. So everybody, even though they have some great individual defenders on the Rockets, particularly Mr. 94 feet and Dwight Howard, they don't know what each other is going to do. They don't know what the man next to them is going to do. So it's very difficult for them to read and react. They don't know. I don't know how long you need help on this screen. I don't know when you're going to break and rotate over. I don't know. So I'm always guessing. And then by the time you go and guess, it's too late. So the Golden State Warriors, again, like Steph Curry said, we've been working on this stuff for years. We've been through these trials and tribulations before. We already know how it's going to play out. Look, Golden State Warriors bench just grinds you to mush. The starters are good enough. But then when they come with that bench, their bench crushes your bench. Leandro Barbosa was 4-4 from the field. He had 9 points in 13 minutes. When you have a guy like Barbosa that you can bring in and he's that efficient, it just makes the starters so much more devastating. That's what it does. They have an all NBA caliber defender coming off the bench, Andre Iguodala. It's just, this team is just really a lot of fun to watch. They play the right way and they play hard as hell. It's great to watch. But on the flip side, the Clippers gave you everything. The only thing I was missing from this Clipper game was a good Jamal Crawford game. Jamal Crawford shot like crap tonight. He was 4-15. He was awful. And then he got his shot blocked for game on a really, and that's not characteristic, by the way, of Doc Rivers to drop a crap play. But that let's have a small forward shooting guard screen pick and pop with Paul Pierce and Jamal Crawford. That was a terrible idea. That made no sense. And Pierce I didn't like the way he set the screen, and I didn't like the way he popped either. It was very lackadaisical. I didn't care for that. To me, if he was going to do it that way, they would have been better off just doing a straight ISO for Jamal. But then Jamal inexplicably just pulled up at Klay Thompson's face. Klay Thompson is one of the best shot blocking guards in the league. He doesn't allow you to shoot over his head. He's very similar to Jimmy Butler. You try to pull in Jimmy Butler's face, he's going to block it with two hands. Like, he does not allow people. Klay Thompson is very similar to Butler in that regard. Just doesn't allow people to shoot over his head. So I really didn't like what they did at the end. And if you saw the look on Chris Paul's face, he was irate. He was not happy at all. And Doc Rivers later said after the game that he was sitting because of a groin injury, but it's not serious. We should stay tuned on that because it kind of looked like Paul got pulled, but that's not what Doc's saying. So in a way, we have to take it at face value. But Chris Paul didn't look right. He really didn't look right after the game. So I'm going to keep monitoring that and see how that plays out throughout the course of the season. But and JJ Redick, can't forget JJ Redick. JJ Redick was dialed in tonight. He was moving very crisply without the ball. He was going around screens hard. He was and I don't mean that like he doesn't normally play hard, but he looked especially sharp tonight. He even played some solid defense. He got burned a few times, but overall he was solid. JJ Redick came to hoop, man. He had a really nice game. So overall, this game just delivered. It, like I said, barn burner. And if you didn't see it, you have NBA TV, or I'm sorry, and you have ESPN. I'm sure they're going to replay it overnight. Make sure you try to catch it because it was just, like I said, it was as good a regular season game you're going to see this early in the season. So once again, the LA Clippers fall on the road in Oakland to Golden State, 108-112. Make sure if you like the videos, hit the thumbs up. But you really need to go to seniorbasketballanalyst.com. I'm going to keep telling you because we got everything there. All of our videos are there. We got highlights there. And we especially have a great news feed. We got tentacles everywhere. So we're pulling all the news in. And make sure you follow me on Twitter at SBA 4th String. You follow me on Twitter, you're going to get all of the updates. You're going to know who's in the lineup and who's out. You can set your fantasy rosters to that. I checked. Again, I said it in an earlier video. I found out that Dennis Schroeder was starting on my Twitter feed. That's how I found out about it. So make sure you're following me. Instagram, all of that stuff. At SBA 4 String. You know the hashtag. It's SBA4. And you know that.